Hi friends, it's time for a chicken episode. Today we're talking about meat birds because it's time to order if you're going to raise chicks this year and you want to be able to get the exact birds you're looking for. We'll be talking about the different types, pros and cons of each, and by the time we're done, you'll be ready to decide what is going to work best for you and whether it's Cornish Cross, a hybrid, or a dual-purpose heritage breed. Grab a pencil and notebook and let's get to it. Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock. Hey there. Do you want to hang out with like-minded folks who are also interested in raising their own livestock and seeking self-sufficiency? Inside the free Raising Goats and Homestead Livestock community, you'll get tips on raising goats and other livestock and ideas to increase your self-sufficiency. Join now at bit.ly/getgoatwisecommunity. You can also become an insider and get weekly emails from me with the latest podcast episode, tips on raising goats and other livestock, real-life information about self-sufficiency and living off-grid, and early bird access to special offers. Sign up at bit.ly/getgoatwiseinsider. What's happening on the ranch? It's regular winter weather here. It's cold, and last night we got a little bit of snow. I heard there's some real cold in the forecast, around minus 20 Fahrenheit, but I don't watch the news and I get my weather information secondhand, so that might not be true. Ray is working his 4-H steer with the help of Sage. They've been tying him up, leading him around, and basically teaching him how to respect the halter. We're 2 weeks into goat breeding season and things are looking good. 2 more weeks and we'll swap out the bucks. This has us covered if one of the bucks that we're using right now is not getting the job done. We moved the chickens to the barn a while back and they're enjoying it. I wish they had more light in there, but at least they're not dealing with ice and snow all the time. They do fly out of their pen, which is a 12x12 chain link dog kennel, and they have free access to the whole barn. But they never leave even when the doors are wide open during the day, so they must like it in there. Typically, they'll start laying again by the end of January, and I'm looking forward to that. We've missed their eggs this winter. I've talked before about how to have hens that lay all winter by hatching or buying new chicks each year, but I didn't do that this last year. I knew we had a lot of big things to get done, so I decided we could do without the extra chores the poultry bring. So we did no layer chicks, no meat birds, and no turkeys last year. This year, I plan to at least get some layer chicks to avoid the egg drought, and I'll probably do twice as many as I normally would since I skipped a year. I'm not sure if we'll do meat birds, but if you're planning on that, this is the time of year to get ready and get your chicks ordered. I have a whole episode on why I think chickens are the best animal for new homesteaders to start with, and I'll link that in the show notes. But here are the highlights. Chickens are low input, low risk, and there's lots of information available to help you raise them successfully, even the first time around. Layers are long-term, unless you decide to harvest them, which is completely fine. And a dual-purpose brood suits that plan really well, especially if you plan to hatch your own. Meat birds are the ultimate short-term, highly productive homestead project. It only takes 6 to 8 weeks to get Cornish Cross to butcher weight, 10 to 14 weeks for hybrids, and 15 plus weeks for heritage breeds. They have a small space requirement. You could likely raise a dozen in your backyard where you live now and start getting experience while you work on getting a place with land. We raised almost 100 meat birds one year on our lawn in town without a single neighbor complaint and without destroying our lawn. In fact, it looked better than it ever had with all that natural fertilization. There are basically 3 types of meat birds: Cornish Cross, hybrids, and dual purpose, also called heritage breeds. Cornish Cross birds grow at a phenomenal rate. They've been bred for one purpose only, and that's to produce meat. When you buy chicken at the grocery store, it's more than likely Cornish Cross. There are a lot of ethical arguments about these birds. They can have some problems. Leg issues because of their rapid growth, they can have heart attacks and die when they get bigger, and they don't tolerate high altitude. But the benefits, you simply cannot beat their efficiency and rapid growth, and the amount of meat they produce on the amount of feed they consume is astounding. My opinion on Cornish Cross. I've raised Cornish Cross for a few years. Every year I raise them, I say I'm not doing it again. But I do. I call them Frankenbirds. They don't look or act like a normal chicken, which is weird. They basically eat, poop, and lay around, even in a pastured situation. They don't scratch and peck like you expect chickens to do. And they will actually eat themselves to death, so you need to take the feeder away for 12 hours every day. However, if you're going to sell chickens, everyone expects them to look like a Cornish Cross. Other breeds simply can't compete with the appearance and efficiency of Cornish Cross. You'll have to charge more if you do heritage breeds because it's going to cost you a lot more to get them to butcher weight. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you'll have to do a lot of education to make it work. You also can't breed them and raise your own chicks, so you have to buy chicks from the hatchery every year. If your goal is self-sufficiency, Cornish Cross are probably not the best suited for that. However, they are a great bird to learn on for your first time raising meat birds. Hybrids. Hybrids are birds that are bred using a similar philosophy of the Cornish Cross breeding. The offspring are superior to the parents due to the crossbreeding. Because of this, they will not reproduce true to breed, meaning if you keep them and breed them, their chicks won't perform just like they do. They will lay, and some of them lay at a pretty high rate, so having them as layers would be fine. But in general, hybrids are not recommended for reproduction, so if you want to hatch your own, you'll want to go with a dual-purpose heritage breed. Common hybrid breeds are Murray's Big Red, Red Rangers, Freedom Rangers, Kosher King, and Ginger Broiler. Some of these can reach butcher size as early as 8 weeks, but average is more like 10 to 14 weeks. Hybrids grow well and thrive in most environments as long as they have water and high-protein feed. They will do fine on a layer ration, but they'll grow slower and take longer to finish. Death loss is usually much lower compared to Cornish Cross, and the final product is not as robust as a Cornish Cross, but more so than a dual-purpose heritage breed in most cases. What I mean by that is that the carcass of a hybrid or heritage breed is going to look wimpy compared to a Cornish Cross. A Cornish Cross is like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of chickens. Now let's talk about heritage breeds. Heritage breeds that are suitable for meat and laying are called dual-purpose breeds. These are breeds that are meatier than layer breeds, but they also lay eggs, and some lay a lot. There's a wide range of performance laying among the dual-purpose breeds. So if you're thinking of going with dual-purpose breeds, you'll want to do a lot of research and decide what level of egg laying you'd like out of your birds. You can also hatch eggs from heritage breed hens, and they will reproduce true to breed. So the benefits of heritage breeds. Raising heritage breeds is the ultimate self-sufficiency chicken plan. You have one flock. You don't have to keep a separate flock for layers and meat birds, so you essentially cut your chicken chores in half, which is very nice. 2 excellent protein sources coming from one flock. You can't ask for more than that. You could separate your chicks that you intend to butcher and feed them a higher protein feed for faster growth, but you don't have to. Flexibility. You have more flexibility in your schedule for the butchering. With Cornish Cross, you pretty much have to butcher no later than 10 weeks, preferably by 8 weeks, or they'll start dying as their heart can't handle the weight they're carrying. They just keep gaining weight over time. With hybrids and heritage breeds, you can go longer and they'll just get bigger or plateau, but they won't start dropping dead because something came up and you had to postpone butcher day. If you're not a breed purist, crossing some of these dual-purpose breeds is a pretty fun project or experiment, and their offspring should continue to produce at the level of the parent birds or maybe higher. Depending on your chicken housing arrangement, you can let the hens hatch the chicks and raise them up, saving you the work of chicks in the brooder. Downsides. As with all dual-purpose things, they don't excel at one particular thing, but they perform well at multiple things. They're not going to lay at the level of a white leghorn. Their carcasses won't be as meaty as a Cornish Cross, though some can compete with the hybrids. Some common breeds are Jersey Giants, Orpingtons, Black Australorps, New Hampshire Reds, Wyandottes, Easter Eggers, Speckled Sussex, Plymouth Rock, Brahmas, Delawares, Cochins, Rhode Island Reds, Dominique Chickens, Black Star, and Bress. I know that's a lot of breeds, so you might have to rewind if you're looking for breeds. The Bress chickens are a little bit unique in that they originated in France, so they were called a French Bress, and now we have an American Bress, but they're unique in that their meat actually marbles, similar to marbling in beef. However, to get that marbling, you do have to feed them a special diet, and my understanding is that they cannot be crossbred or they lose that. Things to consider when choosing a dual-purpose breed. Egg laying. We've already talked about that. Know how many eggs you want to get out of them and pick breeds that will meet that goal. Disposition. This is especially important if you have kids. You may want to get a friendlier breed. I don't like mean chickens, so roosters that cross me end up in the soup pot. Longevity. Some breeds are productive for much longer than others. Hardiness. What are the extremes of your climate? Pick a breed that can handle those. Efficiency or growth rate. How long will it take for chicks that will be harvested for meat to reach their ideal weight? Let's talk about the differences in flavor of the meat between the types of birds. Although some people can't tell the difference, most everyone I've had compare the two noticed a big difference. Preference was for the hybrid and heritage birds. In fact, my kids won't eat grocery store chicken, and they strongly prefer the hybrid and heritage breeds. So let me tell you about my experience with meat birds. The first time we raised them, I got a dozen Cornish Cross from the farm store, along with 4 turkeys, and they did well. We lost a few, but we were just learning, so I felt good about that. The first butcher day was not a fun first experience. We hand-plucked everything. A storm rolled in, so we had to do it all in our garage. It was something new we'd never done before, and we learned a lot, but no one wanted to eat chicken for a couple months. I was glad we started small. I can't remember how many actually made it to butcher day, but it seems like about 9 of the 12. My husband told me he'd never wanted to do that again, and the kids were in full agreement, and admittedly, so was I. And then we ate the chicken. It was so good, better than any chicken I had ever eaten, and I knew we had to find a better way to do things, so that butchering wasn't so miserable. About the same time, I overheard my husband tell one of our friends how good the chicken was, and I laughed and proceeded to order 90 chicks and 15 turkeys for delivery in the spring and summer. Don't do what I did. The second year was a big experiment to compare Cornish Cross with hybrids and heritage breeds. We raised 30 Cornish Cross, 30 Murray's Big Reds, and 30 Delawares. We built 2 chicken tractors that were 6 feet wide, 8 feet long, and 2 feet tall. The lid lifted up for access, and they were light enough that I could drag them to move them to a fresh plot of grass every day. I read Joel Salatin's book, Pastured Poultry Profits. Not that I wanted to get into raising chickens for profit, but I trust his information. That book is a gem if you want to learn about raising meat birds, and I'll link it in the show notes. I used his ration and mixed up my own feed, and the chicks did great. Our death loss was low. Highest in the Cornish Cross, as you would expect, but I don't think we lost a single chick out of the Murray's Big Reds or Delawares, which was kind of a problem because I expected death loss and ordered accordingly, so we had a few more birds in the chicken tractors than I had planned on. Our orders overlapped though, and the Cornish were out of their chicken tractor at 10 weeks old before the Delaware chicks were ready to leave the brooder. I did have backup space ready once I saw that the death loss was so low. I was surprised that the Delawares had similar carcasses to the Murray's Big Red. We butchered the Delaware roosters, except 2, and kept the hens as layers and to raise chicks to start our dual-purpose flock. Plans changed, and our move made it so that we had to temporarily downsize, so I sold the Delawares. The gal who bought them told me they have performed really well, so even though I didn't finish that experiment out myself, we learned a lot, and I wouldn't hesitate to buy Delawares again. 2 things made that year a winner: mixing my own feed and buying a plucker. If I can give you one piece of advice when raising meat birds, buy the plucker. Seriously, just buy the plucker. You'll thank me later. You can scald them in a pot on your camp stove, but hand plucking is a tortuous job, and you'll curse the day you decided to raise meat birds. If it turns out that meat birds aren't for you, you can sell the plucker and recoup most of your cost. We did a test that year where I gave some families one of each type of bird to try and get their feedback. Every single family preferred the hybrid or heritage birds for flavor, even though they were able to clearly see that those birds had a lot less meat on them. Flavor can be much different than what you're used to with Cornish Cross grocery store chickens. However, homegrown chicken, regardless of the breed, is superior in flavor to anything you can buy in the grocery store. And I should probably put a warning in here. Once you eat homegrown chicken, you'll never be able to eat grocery store chicken again. We skipped a year in there while we were busy building and moving, and then we did a batch of 100 Cornish Cross. It was kind of a disaster from the beginning. There were 14 dead chicks in the box, so they had a rough trip, and the ones that survived never really recovered from that. Top it with the hardest winter I remember, and I had overgrown chicks that were still in brooders because there was still a foot of snow on the ground when they should have gone out on pasture. We moved them to a horse trailer, but it was still too cold for them, and Cornish Cross don't handle cold. It was a combination of weak chicks, bad weather, poor timing, and the death loss was around 75%. I should say that I called the hatchery to try to reschedule our delivery when I realized that winter was not going away anytime soon, but they had already set the eggs and couldn't change the date, and I understand that. It was just one of those crappy circumstances where everything goes wrong and a lot of lessons were learned. If I ever do Cornish Cross again, I will wait until late May or June to get the chicks, just to be sure they won't have to be out in cold weather. I also didn't mix up my own feed that year because of everything we were doing with selling our house in town and the move, and I just didn't have the time. I don't know for sure if that would have changed anything, but if I raise them again, I'll be mixing up the feed. We now have a flock of dual-purpose breeds, and I hope to hatch some chicks this spring. But if we don't have our power set up to run an incubator or a situation where I can let the hens raise them for me, I'll go ahead and order some more dual-purpose chicks for this year. I'm not sure when we'll do a full-fledged meat bird year again, but I'm okay with waiting until we wrap up some of our bigger projects, and I'll have the time I need to mix up feed and give them the attention they require. I hope this episode helps you choose the right meat birds for your farmer homestead. Raising chickens is a powerful experience that can better prepare you for bigger livestock projects while keeping the risk and costs at a minimum. If you have questions or comments, come on over to the community and start a conversation. Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.